Welcome to a special edition podcast of Cat Space. I am Kat, and this is Buckets, and my colleague Leon. Hi, how are you? Thank you for joining me on such an important podcast. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm all right. I literally only got home about an hour ago.
Okay, so the reason why we're doing this podcast today because Leon and I have decided enough is enough, and this topic needs to be addressed and raise awareness to it. As we know, the way that our world works is everything has to do with race or racism. I received something from Leon this morning that made my blood boil, and I was not very pleased and decided to pull this together at the last minute to talk about this and say enough is enough. First question I want to bring up or raise is how do we stand up to or against racism in this world?
Oh man, it's well, people need to be brought up better. That's the thing.
Mm,
We live in this generation where there's no respect whatsoever. At
mm.
least not in this generation.
Well, my father always said to me that racism was a fear. So,
Yes, you're
um,
exactly right. Yes.
Usually when people are racist towards one another, it's because they're fearful of something. Now, the
Yeah, that's
letter
right.
that we read, it was very anti-Chinese, and it had a
Oh
lot
yeah.
to do with COVID-19. But
Yeah.
I was looking through it today, and I all I just saw was a person who had really terrible grammar, but I also saw a person who was basically in fear of the Chinese for a lot of things, and I was looking at it, um, and I was looking at the letter, and I'm wondering whether we should even read it or not.
No, I don't think we should.
We should not. I don't think we should either because there's a lot of expletives. There's a lot of basic swearing. A lot of let's face it, as the topic says, there's a lot of racist towards it.
Mm. So basically, I found that there was just so many inconsistencies, and there was lots of things about how the Chinese had brought the virus to Australia and all these sorts of things, and how basically you know the white people didn't bring disease or anything like that. Here's an interesting point. When the English or the Europeans came over to Australia to colonize um, Australia, when the Aborigines had already been there for 1 billion years, they brought with them disease. They brought with them smallpox. They brought with them colds and flus and all sorts of things. So to say something as racist as Asians brought disease, and if it wasn't for before that, there was no disease before there was Asian before or Asian or Chinese people. I just thought that's ridiculous because every nation in the world has had some sort of disease with them, whether it's the Black Plague or the Spanish flu or the common
Mm-hmm.
cold. Every country in the world has brought them with them sometimes. And one of the things about English settlement was they brought things like farm animals, like pigs and cows and other animals like sheep, which require farming. And so if they weren't properly cultivated, they brought diseases with them. So that's where all those diseases actually come from, which is white people or Europeans that brought animals with them that had diseases
Yeah.
with them. So to say
Uh,
it's just a Chinese thing is well, it's just plain wrong, to be perfectly honest.
it
Uh,
is wrong. It is wrong, and I don't condone. I don't support. No, what was said. I mean, it was just wrong, and it was just looking for an excuse to just vent. And I did mention this to you, Kat. I believe I did mention it to you a while ago when this whole thing started. When there is a vaccine, there's going to be a sense of relief, and then there's going to be xenophobia.
Mm.
And what we've seen here today is just a plain simple, well, start of xenophobia.
Actually, one of the other things I thought was funny about the letter was the fact that they were saying that Asian people are the ugliest people on the planet. Well, if that's true, how is it that basically China has one of the biggest populations in the world?
May I
punching
interject?
punching above your weight.
You know.
May I please interject? May I please interject? Now, it's not just about one culture or one race. We are talking about an epidemic of racism. This is an epidemic of great proportions because it's not just one culture. Take me, for example, I'm Lebanese. Take any other culture in the world. Racism or race has become so deadly and so wrong on so many levels that it is divide. Well, it
Divisive.
divides.
Divisive is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, it's. I have to be careful how I word things because I don't want to get in trouble. But it's painful and it's sorrowful, and every day we hear about suicide or we hear about someone, and race has been going since the very beginning, and I'm appalled and I'm ashamed and I'm embarrassed that you know that this world is so cold and so cruel and so bitter and so mean, and keyboard warriors and people, and they have no empathy or tolerance or kindness or patience or understanding towards other cultures, other races, other people, that we can't extend our hands and give each other a hug or shake hands or high five. I mean, let's take Australia, for example, where the lyrics of the national anthem went from "We are young and free" to "We are one and free." I'm sorry, I find that deplorably wrong. We are not one and free. We are a divided nation because people still stick to, and look at America. It's turned towards hate. It's turned towards race. It's turned towards bigotry. It's turned towards anger. And it's divided a nation so powerful that gone are the days that we could, celebrate multiculturalism and now have, senseless violence and anger and pain and tears and trauma and drama and, mishaps. Race, I'm sorry, I'm really emotional and I'm very angry and I'm very passionate because this has got to stop. This has got
yeah, you're right. You're right. It has got to stop, but the problem is that there are too many extreme views, and people are going along with these extreme views for whatever reason. I don't know. I could not believe, all this. There's so much of it now, and what makes it worse, don't get me wrong, is something that we were talking about the other day. You know what it was called? It's called social media.
yeah.
That ties in. You find a lot more people that have your views, and that crowd gets bigger and bigger, and it's just one of those. It just continues to snowball. It's ridiculous, and the fact that people are not stepping in and stopping it, right? If I saw someone getting beat up in the street or whatever for no reason, like obviously to be honest, I'd hate to say this because it's probably going to get your video demonetized, but I'd be pissed off about that. And I wouldn't stand for it. I'm one of those people that just don't stand for this stuff. I think this stuff's disgusting.
I mean, last year in MasterChef Australia, MasterChef judge Joxon Frillo received a private message, and he blasted this person live on Instagram with the message that they sent to him about Melissa Leong, which is the other MasterChef judge, because there's three of them, and him and Andy spoke out in defense of Melissa and said, and Jock said, if I catch someone else saying something like that, I will not just embarrass you, I will humiliate you, and I'll put your message out there to show you that It is not on, and it's not right to say something so racist about someone who's Australian and who could be a different culture to you. What's wrong with you? Like, what, I'm sorry, I'm passionate but angry at the same time, because what is wrong with the world? Like, what is wrong with society? Like, the bottom of this is enough's enough. I mean, I know it'll probably never end, but like, it's just wrong. I'm sorry.
It's fear. Fear triggers hate.
Yes, but here's the other thing, right? I saw a few documentaries, and this isn't the first time this theory hasn't been brought up, but there's a theory going around, and it does actually hold some scientific relevance, which is there really races? Because what the English actually did was they wrote up about different races and made themselves the top race, and every other race was basically below them. And that gave them effectively the moral power to put people into slavery and other things, when obviously that's obviously 100% immoral to even put a person into slavery. But that's actually what happened. And since then, we've basically moved to the idea that if someone is from China, they're Chinese and there's a Chinese race. If someone is from Australia, they're from an Australian race. If someone is from America, they're from an American race. If someone is from Japan, they're from a Japanese race. But the truth is, we're all really one human race.
Exactly.
And the only
We all bleed the same color.
Exactly.
And the other thing that's very interesting, the only evidence of a second or maybe even a third race is evidence of Neanderthals, which have all died out. Neanderthals, which have all died out. And there were the Hobbit race, for which they well, that's what they named them, but they were basically a smaller race of humans. But that was really the only evidence of multiple species of human, other than apes. Other than that, we haven't had any real scientific evidence that there are multiple species of human that still exist. So I mean, how do you guys think about that?
Okay, before Leon comes in, I have to agree with you, strongly, because you brought out a point, is we're all from planet Earth, one planet. We all bleed the same color. I look at it as we are citizens of the world. We're not just citizens of one country or one race or one culture. We are citizens of the world, period, point blank.
How do
Who's going to be?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I was going to say, I think you're about to say something that might have been similar to what I was going to say. Who's going to be the first one to stand up and say enough of this shit? Pardon my language.
Well, I mean, anyone can do it. I mean, I would do it. I mean, I'm a really vocal person, so I have no problem saying enough of this shit.
But look at it this way. Okay, back to the point. What I'm saying is that both of you are correct. I would stand up, but in this modern society we live in, this modern era, this modern world, is that you go out and protest in the street and you get arrested. We're in the most dangerous time in our lives, and if you go out and protest, you get in trouble, you get fined. But if you protest online, people do take notice, but how are we supposed to not protest per se, but how do we make our feelings known that this is not okay? I mean, we could write a status and go, enough is enough. We are citizens of the world. We're not just citizens of one country or one culture. We are citizens of the world. We need to unite against hate. And
we see the thing is, Kat, is that you don't need to walk out in the street with banners and all that stuff in order to protest. In fact, anyone can actually protest just by staying at home and just basically sending in a video clip or doing exactly what we're doing a podcast. And that's another way of protesting. You don't technically need to basically go outside and go for a long walk on Victoria Road, only to get
Mainstream media doesn't help. The mainstream media doesn't help this either. If they see a protest, people are there. They want to be a part of that. They want to say, "Oh, look, I was there to be a part of this particular protest." The mainstream media doesn't help by flaming it, by flaming it up even worse. I always rip into news.com.au on Twitter when they start fueling it. I say, like, is this a slow music, or is this a slow news day, or what? There's better things that these people can be doing.
Well,
Exactly.
I actually remember the stroke that Adam Hills did when remember the what was the what was that beach where everyone had a riot? Do you remember
Cronulla.
Yeah, Cronulla. There we go. So the
And
Cronulla riot.
you know what the scary thing is? I was at Cronulla, but days before? I think it was like days, but maybe even a couple of weeks before. And when I saw that, I was disgusted. I could not believe it. There's our Australians acting like extreme left dickheads.
But the thing is about that is that there were, okay, well, there's two things. First thing was there were people that had signs that said, we grew here, you flew here. But these are white guys, right? So it's like, okay, the Aboriginal people are going, okay, we're just a bit confused. You grew here and the other guys flew here. Okay. But
why are these guys joining this protest then?
Yes. But the thing is about it, right, is that they resolved that. So there were people within the Cronulla community that actually knew that if they were to continue fighting, if white people were to continue to fight Lebanese people, then it would just never end. And rather than basically continue to fight and turn it into a gangland place, what they did instead was just have peace. And they made peace and they made it work. And they believed that the beach was for everyone and everyone should enjoy it. You know, but what they didn't want it to turn into was a militarized zone. And they knew that if there were to be more riots like this, then no one would want to go to the beach.
And also, I'll add on to that. If there was another riot like that, there would be a nighttime curfew, and police would be absolutely everywhere, stopping any sort of resistance.
It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be fun at all.
No, it wouldn't be fun. No, it wouldn't be fun at all. It'd be probably the worst case scenario. It'd be worse than the lockdowns that we're having. It'd be worse than that because of, there's some extreme people out there who are the minority, not the majority, the minority, doing this for their own self-interest and just to feed their ego.
Exactly. Like, take, for example, us here in Australia, right? When the whole Black Lives Matter thing happened, people put up banners, they protested, they went out, they spoke up, they came in droves. But the thing is, Black Lives Matter,
the extreme left took over that and caused riots and all sorts of hell.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It was fine, right? It was fine if it was just a protest, but then people came along and just started, just hurling abuse, throwing stuff, destroying stuff, causing riots. At least this was all over America. And you know what? Even though you don't see it on the news at the moment, it's still happening.
exactly.
Actually, the one thing I actually hate about the current COVID climate at the moment is that there are people in America, particularly Trump, that keeps calling it a China virus. And I really resent that because I'm Chinese and I never got the virus. I got tested, but I never got the virus.
I had a scare myself and I got tested and I did not have the virus either. And
the thing is, what annoys me about that is the fact that Kat and I were doing some research and we actually found out that coronavirus isn't a couple of years old. It's actually 55 million years old. But it didn't become a
thing till 1965. I believe I sent you that link, Leon.
Yeah,
I believe you did too. I believe I've heard of that.
So apparently COVID-19 or at least COVID itself, didn't become a human virus until 1960,
1965.
which means that that virus could have been in any country. It just became a pandemic in China, and so to constantly blame China when it was in Italy, Iran, Spain, and China, and then spread throughout the entire world, is like, well, you're just picking on China because you hate China, but like you're not picking on Italy, you're not picking on Spain, you're not picking on Iran. Why
That's
China?
right.
So
Okay,
that just seems again another sort of, they're using a disease again to be racist, and I think that's appalling. To be
Here's
perfectly
where my
honest.
second question kicks in, which is how do we globally speak out about and against racism?
How do you want to answer that?
Mhm.
I think we should speak out globally, as we said, by, peacefully and empathetically, getting our friends together in a group, and whether that's by zooming in or whether that's by sitting together face to face but socially distanced and talking about and getting the communities and the universities and talking about racism and how we can end this epidemic and how we can help each other and how we can learn from each other and be kind towards each other. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Well, the thing is that I'll go back to my original point of what my father said, which is racism is a fear. If we attack fear, so if we find ways how to stop people from being fearful, then that'll effectively take away the racism. So if basically if we find a cure for COVID-19, well then, okay, fine, they might be really annoyed that it spread in Wuhan, but if we've got a cure for it, or at least a vaccine for it, that might minimize people's fear, and they won't be angry at the Chinese anymore. There are other things that we can do where instead of we hate each other and we hate each other for the pigmentations of someone's skin,
Yeah.
you should really judge someone based on how they are as an individual, not as how they are as a race. And I think that if we look at people as, and you see all the great things that people have as individuals, and you use that as an asset. So you could say someone, oh, well, he's a Chinese person, but he's a great listener. He's really good at counseling. He can really heal a lot of people's pain. Or you could say, hey, he's an Italian guy. He's really good at cooking pasta, and I'm hungry and I need to eat, and I really want to taste his food. Or you could go to, I don't know, what's next? You could go to an American guy and said, oh, here's an American guy. He's really, really good at coming up with really, really funny slants and stuff like that against other people. I need a good laugh. I need to be entertained by American comedians. And if you can find the goodness in everyone, then the racism you'll find will just kind of disappear, and you won't be in as much fear all the time, and you won't have a reason to hate. If you replace the hate with love, you will, the racism will just die away. But you need to attack the fear. You need to attack the fear with love. And
you need people to, you need some people to stand up. I believe the best people to stand up right now, well, quite frankly, celebrities do a good job of this. They stand up and say, this is not on. There are politicians that stand up and say this is not on. What they need to do is just get together, and just say as a group that this is not on. These people that might still be on the left-hand side might still, support, a celebrity or whatever is to say no, then maybe they might be thinking, maybe this isn't such a good idea after all, and stop, their racist slants and just peel up on that side. And it might work. If there's enough people, it might work. It might send a message that no, racism is not on.
Well, if the thing is, if Bob Geldof can basically create a band where he gets basically the best bands in the world for Band Aid and basically raises $1 million for an African nation in one concert, then imagine what anyone else could do.
Absolutely.
It's not that hard. It really
No.
isn't. It does take organization and it does take structure and all of that.
How people decide to, how people get better? They just decide to.
Yes, that's very good. They just decide to.
Yesterday I met a lovely lady online. I won't mention her name. She's a coach. And she said, being in a radio background and also a podcaster, we can unite and, us, the radio people and the podcasters, because we are media, but we can unite in kindness and empathy, and we can raise awareness and we can say how we feel. And people out there will actually tune into these podcasts and listen to us and understand and relate and connect, which leads me to one of the questions that Philip actually answered. I'm waiting to hear from you, which is, when will society find common ground when it comes to race or racism?
What do you reckon, Lyle? Do you reckon
Well, a common ground. Well, wow. I think I already did mention a common ground because we all bleed the same color. That was my common ground to start with. I think people are just going to get tired of tired of violence, and that's where you can find your common ground.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, you've got a choice. You can be like Palestine and Israel and just continue to fight and fight and fight and kill and fight and fight and fight. Or you can just go, you know what? I'm so sick and tired of losing my friends to this. I'm so tired of basically feeling like a prisoner. I'm so tired of being in fear when I walk down the street. I would want to be friends instead of enemies, and let's break down the walls. And actually, I was watching West Side Story. Have you ever seen that show?
It's a movie.
I haven't seen. I haven't seen the movie, to be honest. No.
Okay, well, it's a great movie because it talks about new Latin American that come into America versus the local white American kids. And they're in two gangs, and what are they? The Sharks.
Sharks and the Jets.
The Sharks and the Jets, right? And so what's interesting about that movie is that even though there was all that gang violence and racial tensions where they're going back, forth, and there's such lots of pain and whatever. What's interesting about it is at the end of the movie, the girl that lost the love of her life to gang violence due to race wars, what you found was at the end of it, because they wanted to end the race wars as well, was both races picked up the body, okay, and picked up the body together and put it into the ambulance. And that was like them saying, we can do this because together because we've lost someone we love, and we can actually care. And I think I love that ending. It's probably the best ending I've ever seen in my life, because it basically showed that even with all the hatred in the world, there is still that little piece of warmth that people still have.
There's still a way to unite.
And is ready to basically ignite, even at the most dire of occasions. We've really got to work out our CG.
Okay, so here's one question. How do we teach our children about tolerance, kindness, empathy, and understanding when it comes to race or racism? Go.
Don't pick on people. That's one way to do it. Sorry, tell people don't pick on people.
Okay, so how do we teach our children about tolerance, kindness, empathy, and understanding when it comes to race or racism?
Well, I think the first thing to kind of thing is about race is that sometimes race can be mixed up with religion. And I think we have to basically get it out of the heads of kids' heads that there's only one true religion. And I think if we can get past that and just say you're all humans,
Yeah.
and what you believe is okay, and even though you have a different belief system, it doesn't matter that if you believe that, that's fine. You're still human at the end of the day. Then that would be a major step. But I find that even though I am a Catholic myself, I do feel that religion kind of divides people because there's always one person saying, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. My belief system is the right belief system. My belief system is the right belief system.
But there's also not just religion, there's also sexual orientation. For example, being part of the LGBTQI family, I'm Catholic myself and I'm a straight girl, but someone being, who's part of the LGBTQ community, that turns into race because not just their religion or the color of their skin, but it's also sexual orientation. And they're looked at, as not part of this world, not part of society. And I think that's completely wrong. And, they're our brothers, our sisters, our nieces, our nephews, our uncles, our aunts, whoever, our neighbors, our best friends, their friends, their family members. And we need to start loving them and start accepting them for who they are as part of the race.
See, the thing is, the funny thing about that is that that's not strictly racism, as it's based off sex. But I think a lot of the time it's treated as its own culture, if you will, or at least a subculture. So I would say it's race-ish when people start going after that. It's not quite racism because they're not judging them based on the color of their skin, but they might discriminate them against other things and put them into a box. And once you put someone into a box, it's very easy to poke fun of them or break the box or whatever. But I think we should really celebrate diversity, because if you celebrate diversity, you break the box basically, and you have no walls effectively.
You want to teach children not to be racist. It starts with the parents. The parents have got to say, this is wrong. Don't ever do this. That's where it starts. Because if you don't teach kids that straight away, they grow up and make the same mistakes as their parents did.
And take a look at
the cycle continues.
Take a look at America, for example. They had the elections. Donald Trump lost. Now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have made history, and she's now the first female vice president of the United States, and she will become the first female president of the United States of America in the future. But the thing is, you seeing children going off to school and the teachers are teaching them. Here's the thing, right? Here's the question that Lisa, that is, what can we do to get schools to teach about the importance of race or racism when kids in America are going to school and they're learning, no, you can't, no, that's wrong. Your teacher's wrong. Your parents aren't teaching you right. This is about being conservative rather than liberal, and that's leading to war in the US because of race.
Well, I mean, that's one thing to it, but have you heard of the brown-eyed, blue-eye test? It's a really famous test.
Okay.
No, I haven't heard of this.
Okay, so the brown-eyed, blue-eye test there was a really famous psychiatrist who basically got all the blue-eyed kids and all the brown-eyed kids and said that to all the blue-eyed kids that, okay, if you've got blue eyes, you get less of a lunch break because you've got blue eyes. And then basically treated all the blue-eyed kids with stern, and she got angry at all the blue-eyed kids. Whereas the brown-eyed kids, they got the extra advantages. And they said, well, because you've got brown eyes, okay, we're going to treat you better. So you can have a longer lunch break. You're basically going to be treated a lot better. And because you've got brown eyes, we're going to be nicer to you. We're going to be more supportive to you. And everything you do is going to be much better than the blue-eyed people, because the blue-eyed people are not as good as the brown-eyed people. And do you know what happened? The blue-eyed people started to get lower marks in school than the brown-eyed people. And also the blue-eyed people became more troublesome, and the blue-eyed people also, couldn't concentrate as much. And so everything about their schooling, every single kid that had blue eyes actually got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Whereas the brown-eyed kids, they absolutely excelled in school. And what that basically proves is that once you discriminate against a person with a particular race, whether they're Black, Asian, Chinese, Cantonese, American, Australian, once you pick on a particular race just for being that race, and you start treating them badly just because they have a particular skin color,
They're gonna grow up and rebel.
They'll grow up and rebel, but they'll go terrible in everything else, because you're putting them in a world where it's like, why try? Because, well, we're just going to be suppressed anyway. Why try when we're not going to move forward? Because
Like I said, it originally starts with the parents. Then when you go to school, schools need a universal curriculum where it's no BS, no political correctness, none of that crap, but teach people right and teach people wrong. Nothing else. You don't worry about it's not about eye color. It's not about skin color. It's not about race. Well, it's about one.
I mean, look at us, for example. You've got beautiful nieces. We've got beautiful nephews between each other. I've got three. He's got two. So we teach. What we need to do is we need to, every time our children go to school, we need to sit down with them and say, look, and they need to open up with us and tell us, look, this is what happened at school today. This is what I was told, and we need to exactly tell them what you're saying. Teach them right from wrong.
Absolutely.
But it's I think
Absolutely. Teach
I think it's
right
more
from
than
wrong.
that. It's you need to. I think because there is such a thing as picking on a kid, and when you start picking on kids purely because you just don't like them, well, then their curriculum, or I should really say their education, will just go downhill from there.
It takes a bigger person to turn the other cheek.
And sometimes when you have children, because the thing is, children learn from adults. So whether it's your parents or your
that's what I've been saying all the way through this. It starts with the adults teaching their kids.
Yeah.
It's like telling our children, our nieces and nephews, if you see someone bullying a kid at school, don't join in. Be the problem solver. Don't join in. Give them your hand. Give them a big hug and say, "You're my friend." And that friendship will span a lifetime, because that child will remember it in their mind and in their heart as a wonderful memory that someone else who saw them being bullied rescued them and picked them up and dusted them off and said, "You're my friend. I care about you." And that will go from kindergarten to primary school to high school to university to a job to marriage. That child will go home and tell their parents, "I made a friend who's different to me, but I made a friend for life."
Well, actually, one of the things I remember when I graduated from school is that, okay, there are all these kids that I didn't like and they didn't like me, and fair enough, because I wasn't exactly the best kid.
You're always going to get that.
You're always going to get it. But you know what? Once I was out of that school environment and I met them and everyone was over the age of 18, I went out and bought them a jug of a cocktail, and I can't even remember what cocktail it was. But I bought them drinks and things like that. And I had a drink with them, um, and you know what? They actually ended up saying, a lot of them said, um, I'm sorry for everything I said to you in high school. You're a really good mate. And that built really good friendships that have lasted 10, 20, 30 years.
And also kids grow up. Kids grow up to be better people when they're adults. I
Exactly.
wasn't. I was one of the. I was probably one of the most picked on kids at school. It was so bad. I'd actually left when I was 14.
Hmm.
I couldn't stand it. I was beaten up by everybody. Nobody gave a damn.
I remember being a little girl at the tender age of 8. And before we turn, I want to say to our subscribers and those who will be watching around the world, you will be able to relate to me. I can relate to you because I am you and you are me. I was tender age of 8, coming from the Gulf War with my family to New Zealand. I went to my first school at Holy Cross Primary. And I remember going into the classroom fearing what could happen. And I remember having a note, and I don't want to repeat what it says, but I remember reading that and crying so much. And, and then we came to Australia and the race thing happened again because of my race. And I didn't fit into with anybody here in school. And, I've had stuff happen to me like in New Zealand, I had blackboard dusters. I had math book textbooks, blackboard dusters that will poison stuff off the trees, rulers, rubbers, pencils, you name it. Here, I've had my calculator stolen, my bag up in the tree. I've had a lot of things happen to me here, but the thing is, it's made me tougher. It's given me tougher skin because I can look at this camera right now and I can say, do not be afraid of being your authentic self and who you are deep down inside, because that's what makes you unique and special. And if you see someone being bullied or something happening, speak up, say something, make a move.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think is about that. One thing I remember learning in school is the fact that we had this thing where it's like, if you got involved with a fight or something like that, you were just encouraged not to say anything. Don't say anything to your teachers. Don't bother saying anything, and whatever. Don't say nothing. Basically, just lie about it.
Isn't that peer pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it was also because the thing is, if you fight anyone and there's a fight between um, two people in school, is basically they won't punish one kid, they'll punish both kids. And
Yep.
because it's very hard to actually see who started it. But also, yes, it was very much peer pressure. But the thing is, if you go to a teacher, right, and say, this guy attacked me, then they shrivel up and get smaller. And if you have the guts to basically stand up to people like that, it only makes you stronger. And the also thing that you learn, which is something I've taken on heart, is that if people are going to be your friends, then you should basically, they need to basically earn your friendship, not the other way around. I mean, because you're only just lowering yourself if you do that.
Lowering your standard.
Yeah, exactly. Lowering your standards. Why should you be friends with people that treat you poorly?
That's right.
So become premium. Become a premium person. Have premium friends with you. Don't let complete dickheads be your friends, because they're complete dickheads. Just basically let people that are going to treat you right, treat you nicely, always going to respect you and have fun and all that. But don't lower yourself to people who will never like you because they're not worth your time.
Exactly. Okay, so my next question is, what can we do to change the course of humanity about race or racism before it is way too late?
I think we're at that point already. Well, everybody needs to get together. Everybody needs to teach the newer generations that this is something we won't tolerate unless but if if not everybody does it, then the cycle is going to continue on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can completely destroy racism because there's always going to be dicks out there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, language. But it's true though. I mean, but if you can do something where you basically hang around people that respect you and back, and you can be a respectful person, then that's a really big step in making the world a better place for you. And I know I'm quoting a Michael Jackson song because I know you love Michael Jackson's, but heal the world,
Exactly.
make it a better place
Exactly.
for you and for me.
No.
That's what he was singing about.
Yes, but seriously, yes. Sorry, God.
That's what he was singing about.
Yeah.
He saw it. It's just a shame that and not many other people did see it later.
But I think if you can heal yourself, you can basically heal everyone else. And basically, if you can hang around people that you like and you know are going to respect you, and that's a really, really big step. That's a really big step of making your life just a happier life.
He did also say, if you care about humanity, it starts with yourself. Start with
That's
yourself,
right.
then it'll pass around the world, and you can heal humanity before it's too late. And I think what we need to do, as you said, is come together, lean on each other, put differences aside. We're all citizens of the world. We all need to communicate. We all need to love. We all need to have empathy. But it's a shame that this world doesn't have much of that because,
Mm.
Our children and their children's children and their children's children are going to see that and they're going to go, back then that was tolerated, that was okay. So I guess I can carry on doing that, or I'll allow other people doing it. No, we need to set an example to each other as a human race, but we also need to set an example to our children so that one day they can look at us and going, wow, I can carry that torch on and I can carry on that legacy. And, I can be an example myself to humanity where race will become, one, hopefully.
Well, the thing is, race already is one, but the more you think that your race is different and the more you hate other races because you see them as different, the further and further we're going to go apart. But you know what? One thing I do know about this world is that even though there is a lot of bad, there is also a lot of good. And because there's a lot of good, we can do a lot of good and make real change that will basically put the world in the right place. So
The sad thing is, even though there is a lot of good stuff happening, is we're not hearing enough of it.
No.
Well, maybe that's how we fix it is to hear more of it. And you know what I read in that article kind of thing that I saw, that really racist article that I saw someone that was not only really racist, but I also saw someone that was actually in a lot of pain. And I wonder whether
It doesn't give you that doesn't give you permission to go ahead and be
it doesn't.
mean to somebody else.
No, but you got to understand, why are they angry? Did they lose someone to COVID-19, for example? Are they looking for a scapegoat? And that's a really good
I think that's it. I think that's it. I think the latter is I think that you're right about the latter. They're looking for a scapegoat. I think that's the answer right there, is they're looking for a scapegoat. And they have found it because of what's currently going on in the world. There's
when
your
you
scapegoat.
so when you name a virus as the China virus, well, obviously everyone's going to blame the Chinese. But
There's your scapegoat.
like I said, look, it was Scott Morrison that let people into this country. So why isn't people blaming Scott Morrison, who's quite clearly white? But my point is, like, humans, they make mistakes, and we are emotional beings, and we have pain. And what I read was someone who was very racist, but also someone who was in a lot of pain. So that person does need counseling, whoever they are.
Yep.
And they might need to find someone who can better relate to them, and maybe that's the key in fixing their problems. But I saw someone who was very, very angry, and there's no way you get that angry without a reason. So that guy was probably a ticking time bomb, or a woman. It could have been a woman, who knows. Was basically a ticking time bomb that didn't resolve their own issues and then decided to explode.
Before we carry on
Yeah.
and move on to the last question, speaking of race or racism, I know this is going to sound silly, but again, a Michael Jackson song where he wrote Man in the Mirror, where he said, I'm starting with the man
The mirror.
in the mirror. I'm asking you
That's-
to change his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. Those
yes.
words echo powerfully today than when they did back in the 80s.
Maybe that's what we need to do, is we need to start playing more Michael Jackson songs that have meaning.
Actually, I would agree. That's what I'm going to be singing at karaoke next time I go.
Yeah, that's what it is. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking you to
Change
his ways, and no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. There are no other powerful words than the king of pop, God rest his soul. He tried and he tried and he tried and he tried and he tried, and look where it ended up with him. Also, another song that he said, heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me.
That is like basically the perfect COVID awareness song that really should be treated like gospel, because it's effectively the one thing that is keeping us healthier, which is us taking care of one another.
Yeah.
I don't know what we should say, like crack one versus four.
I think
Dangerous.
I reckon if we get a hashtag going on with COVID songs, whatever, and then you bring up Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, and then bring up, say, Heal the World, that'll catch fire. In the proverbial sense, of course.
I think
that sounds like a Billy Joel song.
Let's
we didn't
be
start the
serious.
fire.
No.
Let's be serious. Let's be serious here. I think these are the two most iconic songs. I'm sure he's got tons of iconic songs, but these two resonate in the humanity in the human world and the citizens of the world. Is, I'm asking you to change his ways. He saw this. He saw way ahead of his time, and he must have known that there are dangers coming ahead. But things no one takes seriously what these words mean. Take out the beat and the music and focus on the words that resonate with today. With
the thing is, I don't see that as he was seeing ahead of his time. I think he was seeing his time, and I think we've always had this problem for eons. It's just that someone has to make, whether it's yourself or someone else, has to make the decision to make that change. Actually, do it. That's the first thing. Do it. If it's really easy to just hate someone, it's got to be just as easy to love someone, right? Or to even change your ways for the better. I mean,
humanity.
Imagine if we put all of our energy into fixing the problems of the world. How happy would your life be? it would be so hard to get depression.
And lastly, question is for the night boys is when will, get this, when will enough be enough?
When we've crossed the line, that's when you know that's when you know enough is enough.
Yeah, I think when you've lost so much, that's when enough will be enough. When you actually take on an emotional toll, a physical toll, when you've lost other people that you love, that's when enough will be enough for you. There has to be a sense of loss somewhere. When you feel that you've lost something or some part of you, whether it's a part of humanity or a part of your personal life has personally lost something, that's when you've got to step up, let those wings fly and actually say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. We have to basically make a stand for the better. Otherwise, this stuff is going to continue and continue and continue. And it will if you don't basically stand up for yourself and make
Stand
that
up
change.
for others and make that change. Final words, final thoughts.
Oh no, no, not really. No, not really. I like the fact that we can use Michael Jackson's songs just to solve all the world's problems now.
It's an excuse to listen to him.
And
Not really an excuse to listen to him. It gives every time I'll play, I'm gonna start playing those songs at least because that's the kind of stuff that we could all use right now. A dose of reality.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
I like that. Let's all get a dose of reality.
Let's end it on that and let's get a dose of reality and have a reality check. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Cat Space. We really appreciated you spending some time with us and us spending some time with you. We look forward to sharing another topic and podcast with you really soon.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks. Bye.